How's it going, guys? It's Eclipse here, and today we're bringing you a quick review of the brand new Thunderchief Object 452K, the tier 10 that comes out with the Metal Fest event that's currently going on in the game. As a quick little insight, the actual Metal Fest one that I've chosen is Rob Zombie, so we can get the HMH AMX 58. There's two free vehicles. You got the Centurion premium version, which is the Huntsman, and you've also got the ability to get the HMH. You can choose one of each, and then you get a discount based on which one you choose and how far the community get with the event as well. And so this Thunderchief does come in. It is a purchasable tier 10. You cannot actually get it for free, which is a bit unfortunate. And in order to buy it, you do have to spend a ton of money. And I mean a ton. In fact, you have to spend about 12,500 gold if you want to pick it up at the 50% discount that you get from completing the challenges, which are themed around the Metal Fest event themselves, and hence why picking your Metal Fest does actually matter, because depending on which one you actually pick on these challenges, so Rob Zombie or the alternative, you will essentially get a different discount on the premiums that come alongside it. There is of course a brand new Cold War vehicle that also came in with the Metal Fest event, which is the Scimitar, I believe, or at least you get, let me have a look at the other one. It is the Dragula, so this is it. This is the alternative one, which is a Era 3 Detente medium tank and has a load of spaced armor. So depending on which one you actually pick, we'll give you a discount on the vehicles. The Thunderchief Object 452K, it is primarily almost like a IS-7. It's a Soviet heavy tank, which features a very, very strong turret, but a pretty weak hull armor. As you can see, a very flat frontal plate, which although has a decent amount of armor, is very flat, which means that almost everyone can just go through it anyway, because it's not thick enough to actually just have the pure armor value to avoid a lot of rounds. So pretty much every tier 10 can go through this frontal plate. You also then have a little tiny lower plate as well at the very bottom, but you're not really going to want to aim at that because it's even more angled and probably more likely to bounce rounds since it is much more steeply angled. And if this thing is, if you're looking down onto the lower plate, since this tank is quite low profile compared to some of the others, you're going to accentuate that angle and it's just going to auto ricochet. So in terms of armor, it is mediocre, to be honest. If you get hold down, it's decent, but even when you get hold down, it's got that gigantic cupola at the back of the turret, which you can see here highlighted in yellow. So yeah, big cupola that can be hit, and it's yeah, pretty bad. 130 millimeters of armor. So very easy to pen this tank if you know the weak points. So now that you do, you should be able to deal with this thing. The only thing about this tank that kind of really separates it from a lot of the other Soviet heavies is that it gets 560 alpha damage, which definitely feels quite nice in the game. It's relatively slow compared to some of the other Soviets. We're at 41 kilometers an hour. You compare that to, for example, the 260, 66, even though that's a medium, but more like a heavy medium. The 277, 55 kilometers an hour. The Object 705A, the true kind of heavy, super heavy, much slower, 38 kilometers an hour. But the IS-7, 72. It's also free, remember, so a free tank is always better to pick up. And considering that I would highly say that this tank is kind of worse than the tech tree alternatives, then yeah, I'd recommend getting the tech tree alternatives. The things like the IS-4, very solid vehicle, very, very good, very new player friendly, and probably better than the Thunderchief. So if you're going to spend your money, just be aware that you're really only spending your money for the novelty, I guess, of having a tier 10 premium as opposed to it being really good. So that's kind of what I'd say about the Thunderchief Object 452K. Its DPM is, you know, okay, but it's nothing spectacular. You've kind of sat in a pretty mediocre range. And it doesn't get any silver bonus, so you spend just as much money. 7 degrees of gun depression is nice, but it's quite long and low profile, which means that the gun depression isn't as effective as normal. Your accuracy 0.31 with all of the boosts and commander skills that we've got on the tank is okay, but it's still not insanely good. And so that's kind of what I'd say about this tank. It's a mediocre heavy tank, but it's still better than having these overpowered tanks, and I think it does have a place within the game. It's just, is that place actually worth spending money on? And I'd probably say no. I think if this was maybe 7,000 gold as opposed to 25,000 if you want to pick it up right now, or if you complete the operations for the 50% discount at 12,500 gold, it's still very expensive. So yeah, I mean, maybe you really enjoy the kind of Ace of Spades and everything that's actually on here for Motorhead. Maybe you enjoy that a lot, so maybe that's the reason you want to spend the money. But I think that's only really the reason that I would say is actually worth picking up this tank. So yeah, it feels a bit weird. And of course, there's gameplay in the background now that you can have a look at, and it kind of showcases off the tank. So I wanted to get out a really quick review as to what this tank actually does. Its view range is okay, but it's also very, very big, which means that your still concealment's very bad with this tank, which means you often get outspotted in it and can be just rinsed from the back. And combine that with the fact that the armor doesn't really work all too well, it feels a little bit awkward to play, and yeah, it just doesn't feel that novel or unique that I would really suggest it as a premium vehicle. In terms of the equipment that we ran with advanced loader, we went with gun stabilizer, and we also went with the advanced powertrain. But in terms of alternate variants, I would probably drop out the powertrain and just go with advanced optics to get that extra view range. The extra speed and horsepower, not particularly that useful. And I think that, yeah, having the view range to at least spot other people who do spot you is probably better for the most part. Even though you're a heavy tank, it really is apparent when you do get into that later stage of the game that you're just getting outspotted quite easily. So yeah, definitely having the advanced optics is the way to go, I think, with this tank. Maybe you want to run improved ventilation for increased DPM and a couple of other bonuses with that, such as view range increases. Obviously not as much, but it's still worth maybe potentially using. In terms of consumables, we just ran premium consumables, so premium repair, premium med, and then our enhanced combat rations. Heat rounds, you get really good pen, 320 pen, but they, like, as with any other tier 10 heavy, it's basically on the same sort of page. The penetration with your standard rounds is 260, so it's pretty good, and you don't really have to fire a lot of premium in this tank. But obviously premium, obviously pay to win. You know how it works. If you're loading premium in this vehicle, it is more likely going to deal damage to a lot of the heavies that you'll be meeting. But the AP has its place. It's slightly faster, and of course doesn't get absorbed by heat, so it kind of works quite well as a combination. In terms of like commander skills, you really just go with your typical heavy tank. You can take an IS-7 cruise straight in it, snapshot, steady aim, obviously having 6th sense, born leader, rapid loading, maybe just adding in track mechanic and some situational awareness for some increased view range is useful. But other than that, the other perks are kind of down to you as to which you think is actually worth it, the 2 extra ones. I mean, the build that we ran did have some camo on it, just for increased camo, but of course those aren't particularly that well suited to a heavy, and it was really just a case of slapping on a crew that I already had and didn't really want to respec it. There is currently the option to just respec one skill, so you know you can alter around your skills much cheaper than what you previously could, so that's kind of a bonus. Hit points wise, you're sat at kind of the average. I mean, it's not insanely more than any other tank, and it's also not that much different from something like the IS-7. It's in fact on par, but really I would say that this is kind of like a worse version of an IS-7. It just isn't as fast, it doesn't have the hit points that are actually usable because you don't have as good armor, you have a lot more weak points, you do more damage per shell, but then you sacrifice a lot of things with regards to getting that, you know, the IS-7 doesn't have that much lower alpha, 70 damage less, so it's really a personal preference choice at this point. And yeah, I mean, the IS-7 has better DPM, you look at the 277 and that gets better DPM, so yeah, I just find this tank was a bit mediocre, but it's there really, I think, as a kind of customizable, or at least a skinned version of a tank that is themed around Metalfest, and I think that's what they're trying to sell it as. I don't think it's trying to be sold as this ultimate premium vehicle that you should definitely pick up because it's so good. It's a pretty mediocre tank, and I think that's pretty much what we can say about the tank confidently without really getting into anything else. Yeah, I think that is basically what they're intending for the tank. So if that sounds like something that you're actually interested in, then maybe you spend money, but for me and people I would recommend who maybe are thinking about spending money on this game, I would highly avoid this tank. I think it is a bit of a trap, and it doesn't offer you anything that you can't already get within the game. And that's the primary reason why I would spend money on this game, is if a tank offers a different kind of playstyle to what you could already get within the game, or offers you some unique attribute or something like that sets it apart from some of the tanks that you can just earn for free. But this one definitely doesn't do that, and in fact is just flat out worse than a lot of the other Tech Tree Soviet heavies. So yeah, it was an interesting tank to play. I enjoyed it. It's not bad, it's good, it's, you know, solid, it works, and good players will make this tank work really well. But the average player is probably just going to do as well in the IS-7 as they will in this tank. So yeah, I'd just rather not pay the money and play the IS-7, which you'll probably have more enjoyment of anyway. So with that being said, that is the Thunder Chief, the Object 452K that is in this game. So if you enjoyed this video, very quick one, quick review, just going over the key concepts of the tank and highlighting what we used on it. But yeah, if you have any questions, let me know in the comment section down below, and if you completely disagree, let me know, because this was just my experience, and of course my experience is no different to anyone else's in the game. In my opinion, that is absolutely no more than your guys'. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one, where we take a look at the alternate version of this vehicle, which is the Detente era vehicle that was released as the other Cold War vehicle tomorrow. So thank you, and I'll see you there. Goodbye.